Hello, everyone. I'm Jesse Waters. Welcome to The Five on another night of breaking news. The Justice Department announced this evening that a special counsel has been appointed to investigate the allegation that the Russian government attempted to influence the 2016 presidential election. Deputy Attorney General Rod Ronstein appointed FBI Director Robert Mueller to oversee the probe. President Trump quickly reacted, saying, quote, "A thorough investigation will confirm what we already know. There was no collusion between my campaign and any foreign entity." Joining us now live from the White House is Fox News Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry.
Good to see you, Jesse.
All right, you too, Ed. So the feds have been investigating Russia and the election and Donald Trump's campaign probably for about a year, it seems like. I haven't heard anything solid. Everyone's, running around crazy in Washington on cable tonight. There's a difference between a scandal and a conspiracy. So tell me, what exactly would the special counsel be investigating in terms of a crime?
Well, here's the problem for the White House tonight, Jesse, which is that this is now a wide open investigation. The press release from the Justice Department makes it very clear that Bob Mueller, a highly respected former director of the FBI, wide support in both parties, now has a vast power to investigate Russian influence in the last presidential election and, quote unquote, other matters. And so what does that mean? Does that mean he'll also investigate General Mike Flynn? Will he investigate the president's dinner with James Comey, another former FBI director? And so if you think back to the Clinton days and Ken Starr, a special counsel, a special prosecutor can start as one thing and become quite another and be very, very difficult for a White House. On the other hand, what is good news for this White House tonight is the fact that the president now perhaps can get back focused on taxes and health care and the other things he was elected to do, while a highly regarded special counsel is now focused on the Russia matter. So to your question and to your point, if this president has nothing to worry about here, he will now have a highly respected investigator who will look at this, and if there is nothing there at the end of it, the American people can have confidence that we can finally move on from this. Obviously, if Bob Mueller, though, now with this wide open investigation does find a crime or crimes, that's a whole nother matter and is going to get very difficult for this president because of the fact that Mueller is known as someone with great integrity.
Yeah, so like you said, it could really give the president some breathing room to enact his agenda in the next couple of years or however long this takes. Let's take it around the horn. Kimberly Guilfoyle.
All right, thank you, Jesse. So, Ed, did this come really, though, as a surprise that this was the direction that they were leaning in? It seems like they tried to get out in front of it in terms of saying they wanted to have this happen to make sure to show that there was nothing improper, no kind of, impropriety going on here.
It did seem like a surprise because, as you know, this president, his top aides have been resisting calls for a special counsel to be named. But the fact of the matter is that our own John Roberts, our chief White House correspondent, is telling us tonight that from a senior administration official, when Don McGahn, who's the White House counsel, got the official call from the Justice Department that this is the way they were going to go with Bob Mueller as special counsel, McGahn then went to the president in the Oval Office and they convened a meeting. Reince Priebus, the chief of staff, Kellyanne Conway, Steve Bannon, all kinds of top aides. And what I find interesting in this reporting is that we're hearing that the president seemed measured in his response. You know that President Trump's critics are waiting for him to tonight or tomorrow morning early tomorrow get on social media, start ripping either into Bob Mueller or his critics on the Hill. But instead, we're hearing a much different portrait from the president's senior advisors tonight, that in the Oval Office, the president basically told his top aides, okay, this is the hand we've been dealt. Let's move forward. And so to Jesse's point, this may give, on the positive side, this White House some breathing space to get back to the business of the nation. You saw the markets reacting in a negative way today to all this uncertainty in Washington. Okay, now it's going to be investigated. Let's get back to business. And the president realizes there's nothing he can do at this point. A special counsel has vast power. There's no more resisting the calls. And in some ways, that's good for this White House. Instead of the drip drip of not just Democrats, but now slowly some Republicans on the Hill saying, yeah, we need a special counsel, and the White House fending it off. You know what? That's over now, Kimberly. There's a special counsel. They have to deal with it.
Yeah, the president might be breathing a little sigh of relief here. What do you have?
No leaks.
And, I'm not sure I get this straight. The Justice Department made this call, and then the White House was told, correct?
Yes, because you have the #2 official who helped write that memo that helped the president decide that he was going to fire James Comey. He has the power to appoint a special counsel because, remember, the #1 official at the Justice Department, the Attorney General of the United States, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer, Jeff Sessions, has recused himself from all matters related to this Russia investigation because he was a part of the campaign. So the White House had no control of this, and their Attorney General had no control of it.
Well, yeah, but it's a little unusual that they don't even know that this is going on until after that. But I think it's good for them. I mean, I think Jesse made a good point. I mean, this is, you know, up to now, they have so screwed up the communication on this stuff, on the drip, 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 and they could never get on the same page, this White House. Now, I suppose everybody could say, look, it's under investigation. It's got a special counsel, and we're not going to comment on it. Now, that's
right.
You can't screw that up. Well, maybe they could, but it would be hard-pressed to do it. But this White House might pull that off.
Well, Bob, you know previous administrations in both parties, whether you had a special counsel or you had congressional investigations, it's an effective tool, an effective weapon, as you suggest, to say, when you're asked at the White House podium, Sean Spicer, what's the latest on the Russia investigation? We're going to stay away from that. We have a special counsel. Bob Mueller's looking at that. I'm going to talk about health care. I'm going to talk about taxes. So instead of that drip drip that you mentioned and the pounding that Sean Spicer and the president himself have been taking and others here at the White House, I'm not saying this is good news. There's a special counsel now investigating this. And so Katie barred the door. If there was, and I underline the word if, there was a crime or crimes here, Bob Mueller is respected and is a lawyer, is a former FBI director. If there were crimes here, he's likely to find them. But so I'm not spinning this as good news. But at the end of the day, you're absolutely right that this is a chance for the White House to insulate themselves and say that's going on over there. We're focused on the business of the country.
Dana Perino.
Well, Ed, you were in the White House briefing room. I was the deputy press secretary at the time when the Valerie Plame investigation was going on, and there was a special prosecutor, Patrick Fitzgerald, who was a U.S. attorney at the time at prosecuting authority. What is the difference, if any, with Bob Mueller taking over here? And also, I do think that we're sort of missing one other point. This is not just an investigation into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. It's actually much bigger than that. And I see it as almost like a Rob Silberman report on WMD, because it's about the overall Russia attempt to influence. It maybe had nothing to do with the Trump campaign, but when you look at some of the things that Russia was doing to hack into Twitter and social media and to create fake news stories and all of that stuff, I actually think that this could be very, very useful overall for not just America, but for the civilized world to basically push back against this entity, Russia, in some sort of like a Rob Silberman type report that would be accepted in its conclusion.
Correct, because I think as you lay that out, without a special counsel, President Trump could have been dealing with this maybe not for weeks or months, but maybe years. On the other hand, now you can get a vast investigation to look at everything. John McCain last night, as a Republican, a senior Republican, said this is becoming something like Watergate, drip, drip. The American people are not going to have respect for the investigation if it's done by people who are seen as close to the president. It must be some sort of independent probe. So to your point, I think, yes, this could be important for this White House to have some sort of good housekeeping seal of approval that this is not a crony of President Trump who's looking at this. On your question about special counsel or special prosecutor, the laws changed. Remember, the special prosecutor law, as I recall, several years ago expired. And so now the Justice Department has the ability to call a special counsel. What will that mean for Bob Mueller? We don't know tonight. He now has to hire lawyers. He has to have investigators. We're told that he's going to build on the current investigation with FBI agents, but he's going to have to get office space here in Washington. He's going to get investigators. This could be a sprawling investigation. Does he just look at it as a quote-unquote special counsel that investigates and then recommends to the Justice Department whether or not there's a prosecution if there are crimes? Final point. You're right. There's an important point everyone has to remember, which is that this is not just about Russia influencing the election. When the Justice Department statement says they'll be investigating the special counsel other matters, that could mean the president's dinner with James Comey, the president's meeting in the Oval Office with James Comey, General Flynn and the money he accepted. There's all kinds of things that this can open the door to that could be very painful for this White House.
Greg Gutfeld, you're next.
Just to that point, when there's so many lanes, there's more lanes to this than in a supermarket. There might be nothing there. I mean, when you can't focus And instead, you're saying, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. It's because there's no this. So you're desperately trying to find all these little things. But that's not what I want to talk about. I swear I can hear Hillary Clinton cackling in her makeshift shed out in the woods, because I think this is maybe for her a minor victory, a participation trophy after being just slaughtered by Trump in the election. If you remember in the book Shattered, they detail how right after she lost, the narrative that she wanted out was that she lost because of Russia. And so ever since then, it has been about Russia, Russia, Russia. And now that's what she got. The media's on board. Everybody's doing her bidding. It's like she's never went away. Thoughts,
Yes.
Ed?
Well, Greg, it was even more recent than the book Shattered and more recent than election night. Think about a week or two ago when Hillary Clinton did that Q&A and flat out said, I was winning. If the election were held, I think she said on October 27th, I'd be your president, which was a remarkable thing to say because the election was not held then. As Sean Spicer said from the podium here behind me at the White House the day after, he said if they had finished the Super Bowl at halftime, the Atlanta Falcons would have won. October 27th was ridiculous. That had nothing to do with it. It was not election day. And so I think directly to your question, the fact of the matter is that Hillary Clinton has not gotten over the results. Maybe she gets some measure of justice tonight that this is all going to be looked at. But I think it's very interesting that, remember, Donald Trump and his advisors in the campaign encouraged this whole lock her up refrain. And so now you have a very serious investigator, Robert Mueller, looking at whether or not there were crimes on the Trump side. We don't have any evidence that there was or is. But now they're investigating it, and they're looking at it very closely, Greg.
All right, Ed, thanks very much.
Back now with more reaction to tonight's breaking news. A special counsel has been appointed to oversee the probe of Russia's interference in our election. The Justice Department has tapped former FBI Director Robert Mueller for the job, and he has accepted. Here was reaction from House Oversight Committee Chair Jason Chaffetz a short while ago.
I think they're feeling the political heat. Maybe they're watching a little too much television and reading too many newspapers and whatnot. But look, I have not seen any evidence of actual collusion. Where is the actual crime that they think they need a special prosecutor to prosecute? I haven't seen that. There's been a lot of flailing, but that flailing started before January 20th.
So, Jesse, here's a benefit. We're talking about how the White House actually, it's liberating if they take this opportunity to not comment, and they could talk about jobs, tax reform, jobs, healthcare, jobs. And they just like the relentless focus, have a good foreign trip and come back and just let the chips fall where they may in terms of prosecutor. But why on the Hill continue to try to do something like this for Congressman Chaffetz, who is actually retiring, and then like muddying the waters with more politics?
If I was about to retire, I'd start working on my tan. I'd start playing tennis. I don't know what he wants to get embroiled in this fiasco for. But I do agree with you and some of what Ed said. There are benefits to this special counsel. I admit I flip-flopped on this thing. About 2 weeks ago, I said, need a special counsel. There's already multiple investigations.
No.
Yeah, you know what? At least I own it, Bob.
He's actually pretty solid.
Because I can say, that I flip-flopped, and that's on tape. So I believe, because the heat had gone up so much, this really lowers the temperature on a number of levels. It takes the whole Trump fired Comey and obstructs justice narrative off the table momentarily. Mm-hmm. It gives Spicer a big sigh of relief, and God knows he needs the help out there. And another thing, it takes the Democratic messaging away that Trump is above the law, and he's the king, and he's stopping everything from going on. He's an assaulting democracy. And Ed said something very interesting. It could go into different directions. So it could go into the Flynn thing. It could go that. But you know where else it could go into? The unmaskers. It could go into the leakers. Yeah. Who knows where this thing ends up? This might end up blowing back on the Democrats.
Absolutely. And Bob, I wanted to ask you this. The Democrats actually had supported Mueller during the Obama administration. He's like a guy who was like, public service is in his DNA. He's been there in Washington for a long time, served in the Bush administration, joined 7 days before 9/11, served in Obama's administration. They actually asked him to serve additional 2 years, or 12 years. Will the Democrats accept his conclusion?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, you can't not. I mean, the guy's got an enormous amount of strength among Democrats. And the good news, I guess, in the end here is whatever Mueller says is done, right? That's going to be it. I think it's going to be accepted or it's going to be not accepted. But, I mean, how do you not accept somebody like this? But here's the other thing. It opens up a whole avenue for more leaks. when you've got it, I mean, you look at the history of special counsel and special prosecutors, the amount of leaking that takes place out of those places. And one other thing, you've got all this information in the FBI. You've got a new FBI director coming in. The good news is that Mueller, having been a former FBI director, probably will be able to work with existing agents. I think there could be some tension between him and the new director.
But one thing about Mueller, Kimberly, is he's not a showboat in any way.
Absolutely.
He does not seek the limelight. He is not a U.S. attorney who has a future in mind, like Patrick Fitzgerald did in the Bush administration. This guy's already had his fame and fortune.
Sure. Yeah, he's not kind of
and it's public service.
And he's not, a controversial figure like we've seen come across in law before, like Preet Bharara, that type of thing, where people say, what are their future ambitions? Obviously, this is someone of high integrity, high intelligence and competency. So obviously, if he's going to do this investigation, people can feel pretty certain in terms of the quality of it, the extent of it. But yeah, you don't want it to be a deterrent to the president's agenda, the proposals and his initiatives that he wants to put forward, and having those be touted and focused on in the press. But I do echo Bob's sentiment that there's a real problem here in terms of opportunity for leaks. So this is a time when the president's really going to have to make sure that he has a tight team around him, that they make sure they're focusing on their agenda, and that you really try and control leaks and people that might be trying to do him harm from within that aren't supportive of his presidency.
Let me ask you a question.
Let's get Greg in because we don't have that much time, Bob.
God, it was an important question.
And then I had a good point for Greg, and now I can't
Don't worry about
remember
it. I'll stay out of here.
No, you tell us. I was going to ask you something great, but you could comment on anything.
Well, I think what's great about the investigation is when you go to complain about a billing problem at a company and they go, oh, we're addressing that. Where do you go after that? It's like they go, yeah, okay, but no, it's a problem. And they go, yes, Mr. Gutfeld, we're addressing that.
You ask for a supervisor.
There is no. He's the supervisor. He's addressing that. So now it's like you're pissed off about Russia. We just go, yeah, we're addressing that.
I remember my question.
Yeah. Well, okay. What's your question?
Which was about what Kimberly's point was that the worst thing, I guess, would be leaks. The problem is the person who has actually been perpetuating the story is often the president himself. Do you think that he'll be able to not comment?
No, it's like I said, it's who he is. He doesn't care. He says what he says. I think this is a posturing pacifier. The Dems can suck on this and they can stop instead of crying for Trump's head. They're going to be having to deal with this. And with the exception of Ken Starr, I can't remember any of these probes amounting to anything really memorable. It's like background noise for years. It's like a really boring version of Law and Order. It just goes on and on and on, and it may outlast us. We may be dead.
Can I ask Kimberly a first
the wear and tear on the staff and the fact
costs a lot of money.
Hire lawyers.
It costs a lot of money.
There are consequences.
I got to ask Kimberly something very quickly. Does a special counsel go to the Justice Department, and if they decide they want to prosecute, he still has to do what the FBI director would do, right? You have to take his case to
that's a good question. So basically, he would be doing the same thing as Comey was doing, which was putting together the investigation, but somebody else would be handling it because Comey wasn't doing the investigation himself. He's overseeing it, but he's going to collect his evidence and put everything together and put together his report based on those findings. But what he's not going to do is then step in to say, okay, 100% making the decision.
But as you heard, Ed Henry said that the law changed 4 years ago, and I don't think it's exactly clear, and we'll probably find out by the morning.
Can I get a little more credit for admitting I flip-flopped, though?
No, I said that you are actually remarkably set in your thoughts, but when you flip-flop, you do it in spectacular fashion.
Something that happens once every 10 years is memorable. I mean, we're not going to forget it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Last word?
Nah, I'm all right.
No, I thought you had a great point.
I did.
Up next, Greg shares his thoughts. That's when he'll give us his great points. It's all about the hysteria regarding President Trump.
What happened to my music? Anyway, it's spreading. Impeachment-itis. The symptoms: exaggeration, insinuation, hyperventilation.
I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America for obstruction of justice.
The big question, did President Trump try to block the FBI's Russia investigation, commit an impeachable offense?
We keep hearing that I word a lot. Is impeachment now on the table?
The ground has completely shifted on Capitol Hill. So yes, you're going to have hearings. I think we know what the summer is going to be. It's going to be the summer of Comey.
I was in the Nixon administration, as you know, and I thought after watching the Clinton impeachment, I thought I'd never see another one. But I think we're in impeachment territory now for the first time.
So it's war, Mean Girls style, a slumber party of unsourced gossip followed by hysteria every single day. Now, Trump could be better, but he's 70 and never had a boss who could fire him. But there's also never been a president more hated within the Beltway. After the election, the first word out of Hillary's mouth wasn't goodbye, it was resist. And now they're all on board doing her job. But what does it really change? Nothing. It only makes the game more interesting. Our government has always done stuff that the public doesn't see. Problem is, Donald Trump doesn't hide it, making him a leaker's dream. And so we have this orgy of cable news hair burning. But how is this worse than the IRS scandal? You think Obama never slow-walked anything? You think he didn't tell the Russians to chill until he won? Think he didn't give Manning a pass? Give me a break. That's so much worse. Oh, but Greg, that shouldn't excuse Donald Trump. Yes, it does. When those drooling defenders of Obama's errors now scream for Trump's head, you bet it does. So it's a pure media play, like a 24-hour Super Bowl, and it won't end until there's a loser, which won't be the media or the pollsters, because like roaches, they survive everything. So electing Trump, a disruptive force, was revolutionary. So now what you're seeing is the counter-revolution led by a frantic force that slept through the last 9 years. The whole thing is silly and overwrought. It's like a Twilight movie with old, ugly people.
Should have been music.
That's music to my ears. So, Dana, is this impeachment talk overblown, underblown, or just blown?
Completely overblown. And nothing is more unattractive to me than overreach. And also, nothing can unite a party like an impeachment effort.
Yeah.
So if you look back at Bill Clinton, after the Republicans impeached him there, what happened? Bill Clinton's popularity with the Democrats went way up, and it actually has never waned.
That's true.
I'm not saying that's going to happen here. And for his detractors, it's like every night they think that there's going to be some payoff.
Right.
So, like, they're waiting. They're like, every night they tune in, like, tonight's the night.
Yep.
Tonight's the night is going to get people. Like, impeachment is, I would say, 98% not happening unless there's some sort of evidence that comes forward that we might not even know for like 2 or 3 years. So I just don't, I think that they're chasing something that is not going to be the case. That doesn't mean that there isn't political damage to his agenda or the inability to actually get on message and stay on it. That's all true, but I think impeachment is way out of bounds.
Jesse, it seems like this is an example of like some contagious, highly concentrated mass hysteria, like fainting schools in grade school. Somebody would faint, and then another person would faint, and then somebody would throw up, and they'd have to bring in the powdered
It's
sawdust.
contagious because it's all over television.
Yeah.
And I think the media is swinging for the fences here because they have nothing left in the bullpen.
Right.
If Nancy Pelosi is against impeachment, I think, and when she's the voice of reason, I think you have to pump the brakes a little bit there. The only thing that Trump has obstructed, technically, is Hillary moving into the White House. Let's look what happened here. He's at dinner, and he says, Flynn's a good guy, I hope that he doesn't go down. That's not obstruction. That's not threatening the FBI director. Obstruction of justice, you have to act with knowledge you're committing a crime and have intent to undermine. And if that was true, then Comey is guilty of a felony for not reporting it immediately.
Yep.
And Obama interfered in 2 ongoing investigations with chilling public statements on the IRS and Hillary. So, I don't really think this is going to amount to anything. He survived locker room talk. If you can survive a locker room talk, I think he can survive a memo from Comey.
Kimberly, I think the media fails to realize that they're talking about essentially a coup. Because they're trying to look for perceived injustices and building it into something bigger. But they fail to realize there's 60 million people plus that voted for Trump and billions who voted for an idea. You think you're going to try to find a weasel way to get him out of office and not piss off millions of people who will take to the streets? They're not thinking about the safety. No, they're not thinking about the safety of the country.
Well, or the well-being of the country going ahead as a free republic.
It's not like impeaching Nixon. Or Clinton. People will hit the streets because they know you're trying to weasel this.
You really think so?
Well, what he's trying to say, Bob, so you're not too alarmed, is that President Trump has very active and vocal supporters that helped carry him into the office. And so for the Democrats, I think it's just very loose, and they're over-promising, and they're going to under-deliver to their supporters and constituents that I don't believe that they're going to be able to impeach this president based on, what evidence. Certainly nothing that has been put forward thus far. So they're doing this and they're hyping it because they like the sound of it. They like the idea of it. They like the sound of the fundraising dollars and how it sounds back to their constituents. But they're not actually thinking about what's in the best interest of the country to try to undermine a presidency. And the other problem is that it's not just the mainstream media and the Dems and the libs. There are people within the president's own party, and I believe in his own administration, that aren't really serving him the best way that they could, that perhaps are not all on board with his policies and his proposals and his agenda. So if I were him, I would tighten up the ranks and make sure that he had a real strong, loyal team in with him like President Reagan did. They called it Reagan's Army when he came in and he dismissed the people that weren't his people and brought in his own to go forward.
Bob, shouldn't it scare the average American that a political party and the media are so in line, they're practically interchangeable on this issue?
Well, I'm not sure the American people think about that much. And let me push back on you here for a minute.
Sure.
And let me also make a statement out of all this. You say that there's nothing there. How do you know? None of us know. We got to wait for the facts to come out.
Thus far.
So we shouldn't just dismiss it as saying it won't be impeachable. I don't know whether it will or not. My guess is 9 to 1 it won't.
But that argument cancels out because you just argued against your own argument. It's impeachable. It's impeachable. What do you know?
No, I didn't say it was impeachable. I said 9 to 1 against the chance of impeachment. But let me just say one other thing, which is that I've sat at this table now for 3 weeks and listened to the constant drumbeat of jumping all over Obama. And I just want to make a statement. You may not care. It doesn't matter to me. The next Obama comment is, don't ask me to comment on it, okay?
All right.
I'm out of that. If you guys can't defend your own guy, and this weakling needs a lot of defense, why don't you defend him instead of going back to Obama?
Because we're making an analogy that President Obama said that there was no national security threat by having a secret server. And no one said anything about obstruction of justice then on the media. Now, Trump says almost the exact same thing, but much less. And you're now saying there's grounds for impeachment at your party? Doesn't make sense.
And somebody charged with the biggest release of classified documents in U.S. military gets 35 years in jail, and Obama sends him home with a hero's welcome. And this is somehow worse.
But all of those things being true, they have to deal with the reality that they have. If the president said these are the cards we dealt, we have to play the best hand that we possibly can. And I also think that we don't know what the intent was. If it is true that he dismissed aides from the Oval Office, including the Attorney General, so that he could have a private conversation with Director Comey about Michael Flynn, and he says, I hope that you might do this, that's actually actionable. Like, there's reason, if your boss or somebody on behalf of your boss is asking you or pressuring you to defend that person or this person, that is actually actionable. It might not be illegal, but it is considered wrong.
Comey should have said something at the time. If
not
he
necessarily.
That was
I totally disagree with that.
He doesn't have an obligation.
No, he doesn't at the time. If he thought that he had control of the investigation and that he didn't feel that there was at the time in position.
Statute that says when you become aware of obstruction of justice, you have to immediately report it to your supervisor, or else
his memo doesn't say there was obstruction of justice. He has actually not testified yet, and that's what this will all be about. In addition, there's the investigation that Mueller will do, and he has to testify in public hearing that will happen in the
Well, if
Senate.
the FBI director didn't agree it was obstruction at the time, then I don't think it was obstruction.
Well, then maybe that's what will happen. But us saying that, it does not actually make it definitive.
Now that we're back to Trump, I think you're right, but I don't think that he had a responsibility to say that, because he's on ongoing investigation. It's a piece of the investigation. And I just wouldn't be so quick to dismiss all this, and say this is like,
Well, I don't think anybody is. We're saying we're going to wait to see what the results of the investigation are. We're talking about what we know thus far. What are the next steps in the process, due process, to find out exactly what happened for the truth of the matter.
And I am so sick and tired of this high and mighty garbage. Behind the scenes is never squeaky clean. Informants, police pay them off. When you pull back the curtain, the truth is, in every walk of life, there is some kind of negotiation. We somehow elected somebody who all he does is negotiate and is unaware that somehow that's not part of the formal duty.
You've seen The Wizard of Oz,
It's a shady part of life.
Donald Trump is the little guy behind the big smoke of the wizard.
Now, that makes you the Tin Man, then.
Jess, that makes you the lion, right, with the big heart? Because you were willing to admit that you were wrong, which...
Thank you, yes.
No, you admitted wrong.
I just want to know who's Dorothy.
Now we've got about 10,000 others you can get to. Really.
And who's the Wicked Witch? Who's Dorothy? Let's move on. Coming up, President Trump is firing it back against his critics. We're going to show you that next. Are we? Yes.
Welcome back to The Five. President Trump traveled to Connecticut today, where he delivered the commencement address at the Coast Guard Academy. In his message to the cadets, Mr. Trump discussed some of the recent press coverage of his presidency.
I want to take this opportunity to give you some advice. Over the course of your life, you will find that things are not always fair. Look at the way I've been treated lately, especially by the media. No politician in history, and I say this with great surety, has been treated worse or more unfairly.
President Trump also explained how his administration overcame adversity to accomplish a number of goals.
We've saved the Second Amendment, expanded service for our veterans. I've loosened up the strangling environmental chains wrapped around our country and our economy. We've begun plans and preparations for the border wall. We're going to give you major tax reform. I didn't get elected to serve the Washington media or special interests. I got elected to serve the forgotten men and women of our country.
And that was the movement that brought the president into the Oval. Jesse, so this was a good speech today to be there with the Coast Guard and address them. But obviously, his treatment by the media, something that's forefront in the president's mind, feeling that he has a number of accomplishments that he's been able to carry forward, but it gets lost in sort of the storm.
I think Anthony Weiner was treated pretty badly by the press, but Trump is getting just eviscerated. And these are the facts. It does, I admit, sound a little pathetic to say I'm the victim when you're the commander-in-chief, you're the president of the United States and leader of the free world. But the media has called Donald Trump a Klan member, a sexual deviant, Hitler, a tax cheat, a bigot. They ridiculed his son, his grandson, his wife. You know, they've smeared his business accomplishment, his books, his empire. They've leaked his taxes. They've done everything they could to stop his presidency from going forward. So I can see why he's a little testy, and I think it works for him, because I think when he does this and he plays the victim, it really rallies the base, because he's seen, despite the fact that he's a billionaire, as a little bit of the underdog, taking on the establishment. Remember, he beat two dynasties. He beat the Bush and the Clinton dynasty, and he doesn't get any credit for that.
This guy's a whiner. He's been a whiner all of his life. He's been handed everything he's ever gotten. Now he's about to fall below 30%.
Was he handed $1 billion?
No, he was handed about $200 million by his dad.
That's not true.
Yes, it was true.
If you were handed what he was handed, you'd probably have lost it all.
Oh, I see. And he loses 3 casinos down in Jersey City, or down in Atlantic City, and they clear them closed. You can't do that. I mean, it takes an idiot to lose a casino.
Speaking of whining, you whine about talking about Obama all the time, right, Dana?
I think media bias is, it's all relative, right? So with President Bush, the media said that he had traded blood for oil. And then that is actually repeated then by other people that I won't necessarily have to go into right now. I think trashing the media does keep people in your corner, but that's about it. And right now they have got to use President Trump's persuasive abilities at the bully pulpit to help try to get his agenda through. I've heard today that the new polling coming in on the American Health Care Act is politically toxic for the Republicans. And his voice is actually needed to try to explain to people why that bill makes sense, why tax reform makes sense. He also has a great concept for his foreign trip. They've done almost nothing to lay that out, and it would have been great at Liberty University or at the Coast Guard to do that. But if he's going to talk, when he talks about media bias, you can bet the media is going to pick up on it, because it works for both. Everybody wins and everyone loses.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They should be doing a really good job to get this message out. This is a fantastic trip in terms of the way what they have it structured and the itinerary.
We'll see.
Right.
There are a lot of people pointing out that when President Trump said a lot of politicians were he's been the worst treated of all politicians. People pointed out, well, what about those that were assassinated? It was like it's so obvious what he was talking about. He's talking about a choreographed army of critics in media, academia, entertainment, you name it. But the thing is this, if it wasn't Trump who was elected as a Republican, and if it was Rubio or Rick Perry or Ted Cruz, the people who hate Trump would hate them only slightly less.
Right.
So the idea that somehow they would be treating them differently, no, a conventional Republican candidate, they would see that person as evil, because they see all
Look what they
Republicans.
did to Romney.
Yeah, they vilified Romney,
the
they
nicest
vilified
guy.
Bush, they vilified Reagan, they even vilified Rubio over his pro-life stuff.
Yeah.
Any Republican is evil to them. The only difference here is Trump is not just evil to them, but scary to them. And I kind of would rather have somebody that scares them, an original OG.
He really scares people.
But he's
It's
also-
a really
you, Bob.
scary thing. Yeah, he's a punk.
Bob,
Well,
such
a punk and an
disrespect.
idiot, really.
Anyway, Bob, I like
Well
my
done, Bob.
I like my present from your friends, right?
Yeah, swamp swag.
There you go.
There it
President
is, T.
Trump.
Roy.
Drain the swamp, but not them. Up next, Michael Moore has a threat for President Trump. We're going to tell you about it after this quick break.
See, Greg, I didn't get any music either. Welcome back. 2004, Michael Moore directed Fahrenheit 9/11, a documentary that was highly critical of President George W. Bush and the war on terror. And Moore now says he's working on a new movie called Fahrenheit 11/9, a reference to the day. I'm going fast because I don't make time. After the election, the far left, they said the far left, he's not a far left filmmaker, says he will now have a flick that will doom Trump's presidency.
Yes.
I just let Trump keep talking. That's dooming his presidency. But, Greg, what do you think? You think Moore's he's got the Weinstein brothers with him. His first movie did
I think it's really smart because he realizes the media will sell this movie for him. It will be featured on every single show because the people who are the gatekeepers of entertainment will eat this crap up. And I'm willing to bet if Michael Moore created a movie poster and released 90 minutes of dead air, the media would still give it 5 stars because they just assume it's great and not even watch it.
Okay, we only got 90 seconds, so go ahead, Dan.
Well, look, Fahrenheit 9/11 did certainly, I think, have an impact on President Bush's popularity numbers, but it didn't lead to impeachment. So if you think that this is the golden egg that's going to get you there, it isn't.
I don't want to see him impeached. I want to keep him around so we can just win big numbers in 18. Go ahead, yes.
I mean, I think he looks good. He's lost a little weight. I definitely would commend him on that. I've interviewed him a few times. I think he's a sincere, honest guy.
Oh, you're gonna come back.
He's been on Fox a few times. You know, I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's a professional propaganda artist. And in the last few films he's had have been flops. So I don't see this moving the needle at all. It's wishful thinking.
Well, I think it'll do pretty well. What do you think, Jim?
I think it's so courageous of him to do this film. Not.
I see. Okay, that's good. That ends my segment, and I'll see you all in a week, by the way. One More Thing is up next.
It's time now for One More Thing. Dana.
Okay, so last week we told you about a troubling story in the San Diego area involving a 15 times deported illegal immigrant who crashed his the truck into a family returning from Disneyland, sending a 6-year-old boy to the hospital. The suspect is Constantino Banda Acosta. He now faces state charges, but we asked, why haven't the feds actually prosecuted him? Well, after our report and a little behind-the-scenes pressure, we can tell you that the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Diego on Friday did the right thing and charged him with illegal re-entry. This first time he's been charged with that crime. And we were able to talk with the mother of the young boy. He is still in the hospital. She said that the thoughts and prayers that we've been able to help get for all of them has really helped her and sustained them. And she thanks all of us for thinking about them and keeping him in our prayers. Hopefully he'll be out of the hospital soon.
Very nice.
Thank you very much for that. KG.
Okay, so in a rare TV interview this morning, Gisele Bündchen, you know who she is, Bob, right? The supermodel, wife of New England Patriots star quarterback Tom Brady. She revealed for the first time that her husband has sustained several concussions while playing football, even as recently as last year. Take a listen.
As you know, it's not the most let's say, an aggressive sport, right? Football, he had a concussion last year. I mean, he has concussions pretty much. I mean, we don't talk about it, but he does have concussions. And I don't really think it's a healthy thing for your body to go through.
Okay, well, the problem is the NFL is saying that they have no record of Tom Brady suffering a concussion, but will be investigating the matter because according to the league, the total number of concussions in 2016, including all practices, preseason and regular season games, was 244.
It's unbelievable. You know, there's been 3 quarterbacks who've gone down with concussions, had to get out, including Troy Aikman, and the NFL once again ducks on it, the cowards.
Well, they try and cover him as well so that they don't have to sit out the game or the next game or interfere with the season. It's tough.
All right, Greg.
All right, time for this. Oh, that's my podcast. All right, that's you can get it's loaded on the web. You can find it. It's foxnewspodcast.com. I got slash whatever. I got Dr. Gad Saad. He's an evolutionary psychologist. We talked about Trump. It's pretty good. Now it's time for this. Greg's Rich Kid News. Rich kids are awesome. I can't get enough of them. They're so rich. And I love it because they combine wealth with puppies. Let's take a look at this out of an Instagram in England is creating an uproar because this woman is using an adorable puppy to polish her $2 million Maserati. Now, a lot of people are upset because they think this is a poor use of a puppy, but apparently the dog really enjoys it. And you know what? The puppy probably has a better life than all of us. If she has a $2 million Maserati, imagine the doghouse. So I say, I salute you, rich kids of England.
The puppy probably eats better steak than you.
Yes.
All right. So President Trump received a ceremonial saber at the U.S. Coast Guard commencement ceremony today. And there was a hot mic moment with Department of Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly. Roll the tape. Oh, now I think he needs to be investigated for that threat. Very, very scary stuff. All right, Bob, what do you have?
There's Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. Everybody knows who he is. Well, he's decided he wants to run for president. So a recent poll out shows that The Rock now leads Donald Trump 42-38, and everybody up against him. As a matter of fact, if you look at Joe Biden beats him by 30 points. I mean, this guy's as dead politically as anybody I've ever seen.
Fake news.
He's
not running for president, Bob.
The only polls that matter are on Election Day.
Oh, yeah.
All right, set your DVRs. Never miss an episode of The Five. Hannity is up next.